Yo, what's up, guys? We're back for another breakdown and predictions video, and this week it's going to be a good one, man. It's the first week of the Contender Series 2023, and I'm always usually pretty good with the Contender Series in terms of winning bets, in terms of predictions, and everything like that, so always looking forward to it whenever it comes around. And if you want access to the bets that I already got two bets for this card already, moneyline bets, and I got a couple other spots that I'm eyeing if the over-under market or fight doesn't go to the distance market or props market in general just has some spots that go my way in terms of the line. So could end up having a few more bets on this card, and I like the card overall. I think it's a good crop of prospects, I would say, and it's definitely fighters that are worthy of being on the Contender Series. So let's get into it with this first fight of the night. We got Kevin Borjas. He's taking on Victor Diaz. And Victor Diaz, he's the veteran in this fight. He is 32 years old, 13 pro fights, and he's currently on a 5-fight winning streak. And he's also taken out some pretty good guys, so he has the momentum edge, I would say. The majority of his fights early on in his career were in Brazil, and he was training at a Tata fight team, which is a very good gym. And then he decided to make the transition to the United States. He moved to Florida, and he's been training an American Top Team. His last 5 fights were in Titan FC, which is probably the biggest MMA promotion in Florida, even though it's, in my opinion, lost a little bit of steam. And he took on some recognizable names like Cleveland McLean. He took on Huáscar Cruz. He took on Rice Quebec Ibrayov and Thiago Bello. So those guys are all pretty good regional scene fighters. He won and defended the flyweight title for Titan. But this is going to be his first fight of 2023, and American Top Team's high on him. So it's go time. I mean, he has to show Dana White, Mick Maynard, and everyone watching at home why he deserves to be in the UFC. But in front of him is going to be a tough task. He's taking on Kevin Borjas, who's a 25-year-old fighter representing Peru, and he trains at a Pitbull Martial Arts Center, which has produced former UFC fighters, guys like Jesus Pineda, Enrique Barzola, Claudio Puelles, who's still in the UFC. And he's been fighting exclusively in Lima, Peru. All 16 of his amateur fights and all 8 of his pro fights have been in Peru. And Borjas, he's had most of his pro fights in Inca FC. Currently, he's won 3 fights in a row. His last fight, he won the Inca FC flyweight title. So 2 regional scene champions coming in here. And Borjas has had the advantage of, he was fighting on this date for a while. He was originally supposed to take on Joshua Van, who ended up signing with the UFC and then beat Zagasu Magulov. And then he was going to take on another guy named Hickson Zenadim. And visa issues precluded Zenadim from being able to fight. And now he's settled into the Victor Diaz matchup. So he's had more prep time, but you could also argue that he's been getting different style of opponents. Like Van was a pure striker, and now he's getting a grappler. So that is a little bit tricky. And Borjas, he's had a ton of fights for only being 25 years old, but I would say it's a big step up for him. It's his first fight outside of his home country. It's on a world stage, taking on another champion from a different organization, a guy that's training with American Top Team. So Borjas is going to need to show his full skill set if he wants to be victorious on Tuesday. And he's a bit difficult to break down because I couldn't find many of his pro fights. The last fight that I found of his was probably around 3 years ago. I did watch a highlight reel where I think they were newer fights, but I'm not even sure about that. But he's on the feet. He's fun to watch. He throws heat. He's super aggressive. He stands upright, and he's really light on his feet. He also has a long reach for flyweight, even though in this fight he's facing another big flyweight that's actually going to have the reach advantage over him. But Borjas is very fast. He likes to use the lateral movement and then come in with the 1-2s, big uppercuts, check hooks. And once he starts to feel guys wilting a little bit, he'll start to pressure, be in and out, feint, attack the body. He has good body work and very fast hands. He's accurate. He packs power. He's slick. He also has that killer instinct. And his one loss as a pro, he dropped his opponent early, almost got him out of there, and then ended up getting hurt with the head kick himself and finished. But very slick guy. He has pretty good kicks as well, good round kicks. His defense, I would say, is a little questionable. He tends to rely on his athleticism. He pulls back with his chin in the air. I've seen him, like I said, in his loss to Renzo Mendez, get hurt and then get submitted. And he is a dangerous offensive striker, though, very active and aggressive. And Pitbull Martial Arts Center has been known as a good wrestling and grappling gym, obviously, when you're looking at the guys that have came into the UFC. And Borjas is no different with that. He has very good takedown defense. You could tell that he is very well schooled with his takedown defense, and he reverse hit body locks. And I haven't really seen a lot of grappling from him. I mean, his ground and pound looked good, but I have no idea how he would survive on the ground with a second degree black belt like Victor Diaz. So to me, I think keeping it standing, keeping it at range, and trying to finesse Diaz and either knock him out or decision him would be his path to victory. But Borjas is a finisher. I mean, the guy's 8 fights as a pro, all 8 of them are knockout wins. And for Victor Diaz, he's a black belt, and he's going to want to get this fight to the ground. And he's fought and defeated fighters that are better than Borjas to me, or at least on paper have had more experience and are viewed as maybe higher level fighters. And he actually has decent striking. Like, I think that Borjas has a fairly big advantage on the feet, but Victor Diaz, he's improved his leg kicks, his defense a little bit, and he is still plotty and still definitely hittable, but he'll close the distance, feint that level change, and then come over the top with big overhands, big hooks. You could tell that he has some pretty good power, and then he has long reach, and he's pretty big for the weight, so he could take shots too as he's coming forward. But if he can't get it to the ground, I think Borjas definitely over time, unless he starts to get tired and lets Diaz land on one of those big overhands or hooks, is going to be the better striker, faster, sleeker, and probably be able to beat out Diaz on the numbers. But Victor Diaz, his game plan in all fights is he's very strong. Once he gets that body lock, he usually can get guys to the ground pretty easily. And on top, he has extremely good top pressure, very high-level submission game, and he can get fighters out of there. So he is, someone that has a very good skill set, I feel like, because he can kind of stay defensively responsible, chop you down, and then take you down and finish you. But at flyweight, a lot of guys have super good takedown defense, and they're very hard to hold down. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can actually implement that game plan and actually get submissions or hold down UFC level flyweights. This fight, it's kind of tricky. I mean, I feel like the line is off. It's definitely a dog or pass, because I do feel like Borjas has some skills, but I'm going to go with Victor Diaz. I'm going to say he gets the submission win in the first or the second. I just think he'll be able to walk through some shots. Maybe Borjas will be doing good early, and he'll get him to the ground and then get the finish. And I feel a little bit more comfortable looking at the potential under, or if fight doesn't go to decision prop, then betting aside probably. I feel like if those are at good numbers, then they're probably going to be worth a bet here, because both these guys usually finish. But as a prediction, I'll say Victor Diaz gets the victory here, and I'll say he wins via second round submission. And moving on here, we got a very good fight here in the second fight of the night. We got Peyton Talbot. He's taking on Reyes Cortez. And Talbot, he's had a flawless career so far. He went 5-0 as an amateur. Currently, he's 5-0 as a pro. Finished all 10 of the fighters that he's gotten in the cage with. And he's moved up in competition quick. His first 2 fights took place in a small promotion, but both those guys are currently 4-1 pros, with the only loss being to Talbot. And after that, he signed with Uriah Faber's show, A1 Combat, which is a show on Fight Pass that's gaining steam. It's still growing. It's still kind of new, but they match you up with good opponents, and Talbot is the current champion for A1 Combat, defended the title against an 8-1 fighter in March. And Reyes Cortez is the best fighter and the biggest name that Talbot has ever fought, so he needs to be ready mentally and on point, but he's someone that has that aura about him, that cool calmness, composure, that it factor. So I feel like if he could perform, he could get the contract here. And Reyes Cortez, he's rebounded. He has 2 straight victories after losing on the Contender Series in 2021, trying to get some redemption here. He fought Christian Rodriguez, who's proven to be a pretty high-level guy, and he lost that via decision took a year off, got back in the cage, and defeated James Settle at Cage Warriors 139, and then he followed that up with an impressive victory. He defeated blue chip prospect Elijah Smith, handed him his first loss, but Elijah Smith was only 2-0, so that was a much less experienced guy. Even though Talbot is 5-0, he's had 5 amateur fights as well, and he's been in longer fights. I feel like it's definitely a tougher matchup, but this is likely Reyes Cortez's final opportunity to make his dream of fighting in the UFC a reality. So you know he's going to be going all out. And if he wants to be known in the MMA world as, more than Tracy Cortez's brother, then he has to win this fight, earn the contract, and, do work in the cage. But Peyton Talbot, he's a tantalizing prospect. The guy is super tall, long for the weight class. He's a dangerous man. Talbot, he has amazing composure. He'll stalk opponents, and he's a Terminator. The guy's a juggernaut. Great chin. Tends to start slow, and he can be super hittable early, eat a ton of clean shots, and just takes them, which is obviously not a good game plan. But once he kind of gets going, gets in his groove, he'll get harder to hit. He has good head movement. He'll use subtle head movement, and then he'll also use these big evasive actions to avoid strikes, so he's kind of tricky. He can make fighters uncomfortable, and he can't get caught with his hands down and hit with clean shots, like I said, but sometimes when he, taking shots, he can demoralize guys, and he wants to invite exchanges in the pocket, super accurate, clean. He has really good punch combinations, body, head, good front kicks, round kicks. He has nice flying knees. And he was a good high school wrestler as well, so he's well-rounded. He isn't wrestle first, and he doesn't even seem to be keen on grappling, even when he can get the top position. But you see him get body locks. He has great hips. He can defend takedowns, reverse takedowns, really fast transitions. He likes to get to that wrestle ride position and dump guys, kind of wear on them, and then disengage, go back to striking. In his last fight, he did get taken down a couple times, but showed really good get-ups. He did lose the first round. He got out-wrestled and out-struck, but most of the time in the fight, he usually starts a little slow, like I said, gets into it, and then he could take over on guys. And, in the second round, he used an armbar to get up from the middle of the cage, and he was able to start to really break the guy, use his cardio, and then ended up finishing with strikes. So he showed that he can get up from bottom in the middle of the octagon against the cage, and he's really hard to hold down. He'll use submissions to get up, and his wrestling is good overall too. So the guy has it all. His cardio is also on point. He's an all gas, no breaks kind of guy. Multiple third round finishes. So I feel like Talbot, outside of experience and shoring up his wrestling and just his defense in general, he could, end up being something special here, but still green. So this is a good time for Reyes Cortez to get him and potentially beat him, and it could be a fight that ages really well on Reyes Cortez's resume. But Reyes Cortez is a hard-nosed grinder. He has fast hands. He's shorter, more compact, and will use a wide stance, good feints, and he has a good jab, good leg kicks, and he draws fighters out with the feints, then counters with the rear cross, 1-2s. Hands are actually really fast. He's just low volume and kind of predictable with his offense. And his defense is improved, but I still feel like it's not that good. And I don't really think that he has the volume or power to compete with Talbot in the stand-up. But his cardio is on point, and he needs to stay on the pressure, up the volume, try to mix in the wrestling and just be more active on the feet and maybe vary it up a little bit more. But he needs to wrestle here. He has to time the clinch entries or the level changes, look to either hold Talbot against the fence or take him down. And even if he isn't successful with the wrestling, he needs to at least get Talbot to think about defending takedowns. And early, I think he could have success on top or holding Talbot against the cage, but I don't know if he could do it long term. And I think this is an awesome matchup, though. Cortez is going to be incredibly motivated. He's improved since the last time we saw him in the Contender Series, and he's the more well-rounded fighter. If he can make it a dog fight, he could win, but Talbot is dynamic. He's high volume. He's powerful. He lacks experience, but his upside is a lot higher than Cortez's, and I'm going to lean Talbot because I think he looks special. He's still green, like I said, so it's a close fight, and Cortez may be able to get it done, but I'll say Talbot steps up to the challenge. And I think Cortez could be winning early, maybe get a knockdown even, or start off controlling well. But I think Talbot will either finish him late or decision him and get the job done. So I'm going to go with Peyton Talbot, and as the official prediction, I'll say he wins it via decision. And in terms of a bet, like the money line, I don't think Talbot is a horrible money line bet because it's still, I believe he's like a minus 130, which isn't bad odds. But I would pass just because we haven't seen him fight a guy, I believe, at the level of Cortez. And like I said, he still has a lot to improve on. So we could see him kind of learn a lesson here. But I think the over is something that could potentially be profitable if it's at plus money or at a pretty good price tag. And I think that this fight could go long because Cortez is just super tough. Talbot is very, very hard to get out of there too. So these guys are dogs, and I think it's going to be a dog fight. But I'm going to go with Payne Talbot. I'll say he wins via decision. And into the next fight, heavyweight fight here, we got Kyle Machado taking on Kevin. And Kyle Machado, he is a guy that's a Brazilian fighter, but he trains out of Canada. All 9 of his pro fights have been in BFL, Battlefield Fight League, which is a Canadian show. And he's the 3-time reigning defending BFL heavyweight champion. He has not fought in quite a while, so I don't necessarily know, what he's been doing. But it's been like almost a year since he's fought. And the level of competition has been a little bit questionable. His lone loss was to Dustin Joyson, who's a former Contender Series fighter, and he hasn't lost in 4.5 years, so that's something that you obviously have to give him credit for. The last time we saw him in December was, kind of a lackluster performance to me, but he got the job done, and this is going to be the hardest opponent that he's ever fought, I believe. Kevin Lafarsky, he's an experienced fighter. He's currently on an 11-fight win streak. His one loss came due to a leg injury in his pro debut, so he could arguably be undefeated, and it's been almost 8 years since that loss. He was actually anticipating to fight in the Contender Series last year against Jimmy Lawson, was forced to withdraw, and I don't know if it was a bad injury or what the issue was, but Saflarsky hasn't fought since then. I don't know if it was like he got injured, he couldn't fight, or they told him, you couldn't make it last year, but stay training. Maybe they paid him and you could come back next year. I'm not really sure. But he needs to knock some of that rust off. It's been a little over a year since he's fought and performed well in the spot. It's his first fight in the United States, so we'll see how he comes out. And I feel like style-wise, Lafarsky, he looks good. It's hard to rate him due to his level of competition. I mean, he's fought a lot of cab drivers, milkmen, but big body with a long reach. He works the jab, he comes downhill, he pressures the whole fight, and he actually throws some decent hand combinations with good speed, which you don't usually see from heavyweights. And he likes to do a lot of cage pushing, wear on guys. He is going to be the significantly bigger fighter in this fight, so that's going to be a good game plan to use. And when he gets on top, he's been able to finish a lot of these lower level guys with submissions. He has a lot of different submission finishes that he's gone to in his career, but I just don't know if he's going to be that dominant or effective with his wrestling and grappling at the UFC level like that. In his fight with Luis Lima, he went 3 rounds and got a lot of top control, but didn't do a lot of offense, and I feel like maybe that's how he'll look against higher level guys. But his conditioning seems to be good, and with his height, 81.5-inch reach, his grappling on point, good cardio, it makes him a formidable guy, and he's going to be the bigger guy. He needs to use his regular style, use the jab, stay tight defensively, look to implement his size and push Machado against the fence. And this is his first fight in United States professionally, but he has trained for a long time. He trained at Jackson Winks, and he's been there off and on for a while. He trained at Renzo Gracie's gym, so he's trained in the U.S., he's been here, and I think that acclimation is going to help him out. And Kyle Machado, he's smaller, quicker, more agile heavyweight. He's still a big guy, 6'4", 250, but good speed and pretty good straight punches, good front kicks and head kicks, but his striking is sloppy. He's good on the front foot, but he tends to pull back with his chin in the air, and against a 6'6" guy, that could definitely be an issue. But he likes to grapple. His wrestling doesn't look that great, but he has good grappling skills. He can get held against the cage, and when he can get on top, though, his transitions are really good. He likes to get to the mount and go for the armbar, and which is risky, but he's gotten a lot of finishes with that. On bottom, he's active too. He seems hard to hold down. Cardio is kind of an unknown to me for Machado because I couldn't really find long fights of his, but he is 1-1-1 in decisions. So that leads me to believe his cardio may not be the best. And I'm going to pick Lafarsky here. I think his size will be a big factor. I think his boxing, cage pushing, I feel like he has, it seems like, good grappling acumen. So if it goes to the ground, I could see Machado, attacking submissions off his back and failing, or attacking submissions from the top, losing position and getting tired from Lafarsky being the bigger guy on top of him. Both these guys are usually early finishers, but their level of competition has been low. So I think that another bet here that could potentially be profitable is the over. And I think it'll be a lot of hoarding against the cage. But Lafarsky, he hasn't fought in a while, but he's young, and I expect him to come back improved, on point. And I think he's going to be able to get the win here just by doing what he usually does and implement that workman-like style. So I think the over, maybe even fight goes to decision, Lafarsky by decision if those are at high price tags, and Lafarsky money line are all pretty good bets on this fight. And the next one here, we got Nolan. He's taking on Bogon Grodd. And this is a fight that I feel like is split. A lot of people are on both sides. Nolan, Australian fighter, and this is his first stab at international competition. Up until now, all 12 of his fights have been in Australia, and he's been pretty dominant. He became the amateur MMA champion for XFC. He is undefeated so far as a pro. A majority of his fights as a pro came in Eternal MMA, which is the biggest MMA promotion in Australia. His last 3 wins have been finishes, and all of the fighters he's beaten have had winning records. So he's definitely tested himself. Only 23 years old, so he's going to be confident, aggressive. And his opponent, Bogon Grodd, is an Austrian fighter trying to continue the push in martial arts in his country. If I'm not mistaken, Alexander Rakic is the only Austrian-born fighter ever to compete in the UFC as of now. And Grodd, he's 11-1, had a lot of amateur fights too, so should be ready to go here. His first amateur fight was all the way back in 2014, and he immediately started to jump into IMAF competition, so doing that gave Grodd a lot of early experience. He got to travel, fight in different countries. He competed in the IMAF World Championships in 2015, 2016, and 2017, so got to fight in Las Vegas 5 times. So he has the edge there in terms of already having competed in the U.S., even though it was a long time ago. He also fought in Germany, Bahrain, Wales, Romania. So he's fought in a lot of countries. And he's fought some notable names. He fought Scott Peterson. He lost there, which is a bad loss to me. But he did take the loss to Scott Peterson. He fought Syrian Clark, got the win there, which is an impressive victory. And as a pro, he's pretty much stayed in Austria. He's fought a very low level of competition until recently. Out of Grodd's first 7 pro fights, only one of those guys had a winning record. And he did lose to a 1-1 fighter during that stretch. But that fight, I didn't get to watch it. And it was the second fight of a one-night tournament. So I don't know if he had an issue that compromised him earlier in the night. And that's why he lost. And that opponent actually is 7-1 now too. So it wasn't like it was a slouch opponent. So I don't know much about what happened in that loss for him. But his last 5 opponents have had winning records. And he beat a fighter with 18 wins in March. And he had a lot of pressure on his shoulders. But, he's had an almost decade-long MMA journey. And it could start paying off if he can impress with a win on Tuesday. But Nolan, he's implemented a killer be killed style. On the feet, he's upright, he's evasive, he's loose, he's very tall, long, and lanky, and he throws nice combos, body head, he mixes in knees, and he's very dangerous. He gets right in opponents' faces, he'll slip and rip in the pocket with hooks, and good high kick. His pace is crazy. He has very good cardio. His defense is kind of his offense right now. And he hasn't faced a striker who stayed calm and kind of made him pay for being reckless, but it does seem like he leaves his chin out there to be hit. And his whole is the wrestling and grappling, but he's improved his wrestling and his length makes him hard to take down. He has good front chokes. He'll threaten fighters when they shoot in on him, make them give up the takedowns or even collapse to their back where he can get on top. And when he gets taken down, though, he does tend to give his back. He spent the first round of a recent fight of his with his opponent on his back for basically the whole round. And I've seen some amateur fights where he was going for takedowns himself, got himself tired and finished. So I feel like wrestling may have been his base. Like, you look at his early fights, he's going for a lot of singles, and now he's totally changed his style to be a striker. But his wrestling was always sloppy, for MMA at least, and it seems like transitioning to a striker was a smart game plan. Nolan is scrappy. He's never been finished via submission, and only been finished once in his career as an amateur or pro. And his opponent, Bogdan Grodd, he looks like a slick technical striker. On the feet, he has really good footwork. He's in and out with his movement. He has a fast jab, clean 1-2s, 3-2s, powerful overhands, and he can switch stance, cuts angles well. He has really good leg kicks, which I feel like could come into play in this fight. And he throws kicks to all parts of the body. He's cool, calm, and composed in there, and he picks his shots well. On the inside, he mixes in elbows. He's an active guy, but I think he needs to improve his head movement, and I think that he likes to be in a more pretty fight, and if Nolan can take some of his shots, make it a war, and start to wear on him, I think that Nolan may get the better of that firefight. So Grodd should try to mix in the wrestling too, and he has good jiu-jitsu and good wrestling. He can get held down, I feel like, by higher level wrestlers and grapplers, but I really don't see that being a factor in this matchup. I think the double leg is something that he should try to get here, and if he can, he has good top control and back takes, which could come into play, and his cardio is on point. He looks like a beast athletically too, so he has a lot to feel good about, but you do see some losses to some grapplers and things like that, so I feel like maybe that's one of his weaknesses if you could take him down. I feel like this fight really could go either way. I don't have a great read on this one. I think Nolan is going to want to make it chaos and try to wear on Grodd, and if he can crush Grodd with a big shot, he is a finisher, and Grodd is a better technical striking, and he needs to kind of sit down early and land some counters to get his respect, and if he can use his counters and leg kicks to slow the pace of the fight and get a takedown or two, he could win as well, or even get the early knockout. I feel like as far as finishing goes, it's kind of Grodd early, Nolan late. For Grodd, he does primarily like to strike, so I don't know if he has the ability or the want to wrestle heavy and win a fight in that manner. I think it's going to be hard for him to slow the pace of Nolan because of the length and just the sheer aggression. So unless he knocks him out, I think he might wilt, and I think Nolan could get him out of there in the second. So I'm going with Tom Nolan in a really entertaining fight, but it's a fight I think could go either way. And skills-wise, I do think that Bogdan probably edges it. It's just I like the physical attributes of Nolan. I like his aggression, and I think if he can make it a wild fight, he could maybe make Bogdan uncomfortable, gas him, and get him out of there. So I'm going to go with Nolan. I'll say he gets it done in the second round. And finally, we got the main event. Looking forward to this fight. Cesar Almeida is taking on Lucas Fernando. And Cesar Almeida is an incredibly intriguing Contender Series competitor. I think it's the perfect type of fighter to bring on the platform. He's 35 years old, and as far as MMA experience goes, he's fought 3 cab drivers, but he's one of the best kickboxers in the world, and he's ranked the 3rd best middleweight in the world for kickboxing. He's competed against some all-time greats. He's already beaten UFC champions like Alex Pereira in kickboxing. He hasn't had an MMA fight in almost 2 years, but if you see him on social media, he has been training wrestling and grappling, so maybe he's taking some time to prioritize that, but he's also been kickboxing as well. He actually just fought, his last fight was a Glory title fight, and as far as the MMA goes, he has a lot to prove, but he's the type of guy I want to see on the show, because if he can go in there and have a great performance, show the goods, we could see another Izzy or Alex Pereira and have him kind of be fast tracked or at least be an incredibly entertaining guy for a couple years until he ages out. But Lucas Fernando, he's entering this fight with a significant edge in MMA experience. He's 9-1, Brazilian fighter. Both these guys are Brazilian, but he just captured the LFA middleweight title in his last fight. And he's been through the fire. He's beaten a lot of good opponents in his path to this opportunity. Now he's on the precipice of making the UFC. And if he can get through this big hurdle, he's going to most likely achieve his dream here. He's the much younger guy at 26, and he's been more active, so that's a big advantage on his side. Cesar Almeida in the two MMA fights, as I could find, he looked phenomenal. I mean, he was fighting guys who shouldn't have been in there with him, but showed cool, calm composure, elite striking, crazy power. He looked pretty good in the clinch in the short periods that I saw him there. And when he let his hands go, he slumped both guys with one punch. His last knockout in MMA at Shooto Brazil 110 was a thing of beauty. I mean, one straight right hand, clean, accurate, folded his opponent like an accordion. But we really haven't seen any wrestling or grappling from Almeida. All his MMA fights have been quick, and he's faced no adversity. On the feet, not many people are dealing with Almeida, though. He brings a heavy, high methodical Muay Thai style, very tight defense, throws heavy leg kicks, front kicks to the body, stays right in your face. When fighters leaving an opening, he has that rear hand cock to land. Very powerful, accurate, great body work. He rips the body with big hooks. He has nice knees, elbows in the clinch. He's mean. He wants to get in the pocket and exchange with you, and he knows that his power and his technicality is usually going to shine through. And his cardio is on point. He pushes the pace. There's a crazy amount of volume when it's a striking fight only, obviously. And durability-wise, he has an excellent chin. I don't know if him ever being knocked out, and he's still fighting at a very high level. His last fight was very competitive, and it was for the belt, for glory. And his opponent, Lucas Fernando, very tall, long, and lanky guy, athletic, crazy 81.5-inch reach for the weight class, super fast and aggressive. He is good at fighting long, too. He tries to stay active. He keeps those straight punches in your face. He'll rip the body. He has good flying knees, spin kicks, high kicks, so he's creative. His reach, his pressure, his volume are hard to deal with for fighters, but he's loose and hittable. He has a great chin, and he's extremely composed. He also throws heat, and he has power, so it should be a really, really entertaining fight on the feet, but if he gets clipped by Almeida, I don't think he's going to be taking it like he has against these other guys that he's been fighting. And I've seen Fernando mix in some clinch takedowns, mix in some doubles, but his wrestling doesn't seem like a big part of his game. And on top, he seems to just hold guys down. He does have 2 submission victories. But cardio for him is on point. He won his last fight in the 4th round of a title fight. And obviously, with his age being 26, he has to be extremely confident after winning the belt. And he has a lot of intangibles that you really like to see. I mean, 6'3", 81.5-inch reach at middleweight. That's approaching Adesanya territory right there. So, but this fight, if Fernando was smart, I mean, he'd be mixing in the clinch, the double leg, get Almeida tired. And if he's not really that type of grappler and he wants to impress, then get him tired and then strike with him when he's less dangerous. But Fernando's never seen a striker like Almeida. Almeida, I think, is very live for a knockout. We've seen 0 wrestling, offense, defense, 0 grappling. But Almeida's cardio, could fall off a cliff if he's not used to wrestling hard too. But I think this is a 50-50 fight, really. I mean, as far as well-roundedness overall MMA fighting goes, Fernando should have a huge advantage. But Almeida's been training with Hani Marks, with guys that are good grapplers, that Extreme Couture gym, and I've seen him at other MMA gyms, and I don't know how much he's really been working, but I just feel like a guy that has beaten Alex Pereira, that's ranked the 3rd best middleweight fighter in the world, if you can get him at plus over 200, where, he's sitting right now, he could look like a foolish bet. I mean, maybe Fernando just shows him you're not well-rounded enough for this level. But, man, when you got someone that's that elite in a certain skill set and knows how to win like that, and he's facing a guy that is predominantly a striker, a young guy that's probably going to be very confident coming in here that has shown hitability. I'm going to go with Almeida. I'm going to say Almeida gets the victory and gets the upset here, earns the contract. And there you have it, guys. That's my full card breakdown and predictions for this Dana White Contender Series 2023 Week 1 card. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully, if you're on the Patreon, we can go out there and win some money. And on the Discord, I'm going to be giving out another free bet this week. So if you want to get access to Discord, the link's going to be in the description. We had some people join, and we had some pretty good discussion. So hopefully we can continue to build that. And yeah, man. So thanks for watching this video. I'm going to be doing the UFC breakdown, maybe a Bellator breakdown as well this week. So stay locked into the channel, and I'll talk to you guys later.